In the United States, there are approximately 185,000 amputations every single year. Among those living with an amputation, the main causes were either diabetes, trauma, or cancer. Biomedical engineers are the bridge between engineering and medicine. Using their knowledge of biology, chemistry, computer science, and biomechanics, biomedical engineers design artificial organs, prosthetics. In this video, we're going to try and help you answer the question, should you become a biomedical engineer in 2021? We're going to go over the pros and some of the cons as well. There's definitely certain people that shouldn't become biomedical engineers, and we'll get into that later in the video. But first, what can a biomedical engineer expect to do day to day? Biomedical engineers conduct research along with teams of other specialists. Lately, with the rise of companies like Elon Musk's Neuralink, biomedical engineers need to have a background in computer science. Artificial intelligence and AI are both making their way into the biomedical engineering field. Biomedical engineers also develop models or computer simulations of human biobehavioral systems. Biomedical engineers are deeply involved with assisting people with disabilities by creating prosthetic devices and really studying how these prosthetic devices can be used. So what kind of education is needed to become a biomedical engineer? According to the Occupational Information Network, about 53% of biomedical engineers have a bachelor's degree and about 30% have a master's degree. And these degrees would typically be in biomedical engineering or engineering with a focus in biomedical. It seems like biomedical engineering is unique in that more people in the field have a master's degree, because when you look at civil, mechanical, and industrial engineering, you can feel free to check out my videos on those, a fewer proportion of those kinds of engineers have a master's degree. So you might need a master's degree with a focus in biomedical engineering to be competitive in this field and to really get the really competitive roles at maybe Neuralink or Boston Dynamics. As far as compensation goes, biomedical engineers do pretty well. When I looked at wages around the world, I actually found that the United Kingdom, according to the Economic Research Institute, tends to pay biomedical engineers the most money, with the average base salary when converted to USD of around $102,000 per year. United States had an average base salary of around $98,000, Australia around $93,000, and Canada around $91,000 per year as a base salary, and these are all converted to USD. Within the United States, biomedical engineers have seen significant wage growth over the past 20 years. In the year 2000, the average base salary for a biomedical engineer was around $52,000 per year. This grew to around $98,000 per year in 2020. This comes out to an average yearly wage growth of around $2,200 per year, which is pretty solid. If this trend would continue, by 2024, the average base salary would be $106,000, and by 2030, around $119,000 per year. Looking at 2020 data, biomedical engineering wasn't the most lucrative type of engineering, but it wasn't at the bottom either. It was beat out by fields such as petroleum engineering, nuclear engineering, aerospace, computer hardware, chemical, and a couple of other ones. For biomedical engineers that work in hot industries or get lots and lots of experience and become senior members at their organization, they can earn more than $149,000 per year. That's the 90th percentile for pay for biomedical engineers, whereas a starting salary for a biomedical engineer would probably be around $57,000 per year. That is the 10th percentile. And wages are also dependent on geography. Certain labor markets are much better for biomedical engineers than others. We're actually going to get into some of the best places to be a biomedical engineer later in the video. Some high-paying states include the state of Massachusetts, which has Boston, which is arguably the best place in the country to be a biomedical engineer, has high pay and a lot of job opportunities. Interestingly, the second highest paying state for biomedical engineers is the state of Minnesota, a Midwestern state, and the average base salary for biomedical engineers in Minnesota was around $110,000 per year. So that covers the compensation of biomedical engineers in the United States and in some other countries around the world. But what is the job market like? Is it really challenging to get a job? Are there a lot of job postings for biomedical engineers? Is there a lot of demand for people in this occupation? First thing to understand about this occupation is that it is very tiny compared to similar engineering fields. In 2020, the government recorded 18,660 employed biomedical engineers in the United States. And this is much less than the number of employed aerospace engineers, civil, electrical, industrial, mechanical engineers. The biomedical engineering workforce is pretty tiny and it's very regional. If you want to be an engineer and be able to work in many different states and many different metro areas and localities, this might not be the occupation for you. There are very specific hubs that tend to have all the job opportunities. But even though this is a pretty tiny workforce, it has been growing over the years. Actually, it has been growing extremely quickly over the years. In the year 2000, the government recorded 6,600 employed biomedical engineers in the United States. And this grew to 18,660 employed biomedical engineers in 2020. So the number of employed has almost tripled in just 20 years. And if the government is correct with their 5% projected growth for biomedical engineers, there would be almost 20,000 employed biomedical engineers in 2020. I think this is flawed because there's actually a lot of job postings for biomedical engineers right now. I think this projection should be a lot bigger. So I looked at job postings for biomedical engineers from Glassdoor, Indeed, and LinkedIn. On Glassdoor.com, there was 7,859 job opportunities for biomedical engineers. On Indeed, there was 1,848. And on LinkedIn, there was 4,117 job opportunities for biomedical engineers. And these platforms aren't perfect. When you search for biomedical engineers, you might get job postings unrelated to biomedical engineering. But on the flip side, a lot of biomedical engineers also have the opportunity to go into different fields. For years, fields like software engineering and software development have been stealing away engineers, and biomedical engineers do have the opportunity to become software developers if they want to. But ultimately, when you look at the number of job postings for those three different platforms and compare them to the number of employed, it looks really favorable. And it almost looks like there's kind of a shortage of biomedical engineers in the United States. But like I said earlier, this occupation is extremely regional, and that's one of the weaknesses of becoming a biomedical engineer. According to the government, there are very specific places where all the employed biomedical engineers are. In this map, the states that are darker blue have a greater number of employed biomedical engineers than others. As you can see, it is extremely regional. The state of California and the state of Massachusetts tend to have the greatest number of employed biomedical engineers. In some of these darker blue states in this map, this occupation might not be for you. Another factor to consider is if you have taken a Myers-Briggs personality type and you figured out your type, you can compare your type against people in different fields. For biomedical engineering, just like the other engineering fields, they tend to have very similar Myers-Briggs types. The most likely Myers-Briggs type to become a biomedical engineer is the INTJ, the architect. Number 2 is the ENTP, the debater. 3, ENTJ, the commander. And 4, INTP, the thinker. Notice that all 4 of these types that are likely to become biomedical engineers, they're all thinking over feeling. And this is a trend seen in pretty much every engineering field. So as you can see, there are definitely pros to becoming a biomedical engineer in 2021, and there's also a few cons. If you enjoyed this video, definitely also check out my electrical engineering video. There's a lot of overlap between biomedical engineers and electrical engineers. They often work together on the same team. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.